And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. We are headed out to the baseball stadium to chat about the New York Yankees AAA team. I'm sorry, to chat about New York City FC. To do that, we are joined by Tom from MLS Aces. So happy we were able to make this work. Really excited to have you. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Andrew. It's always nice to step outside of just the MLS Aces podcast where I have to talk about all 30 teams or do my best to talk about all 30
Yeah.
teams equally. It's nice to focus on my team, New York City FC. And, every single time I do it, I don't know why I don't expect the baseball stadium jokes, but I always get it. So here we are. But stadium coming 2027,
Yes.
I think it's got pushed back to at this point, but here we are. It's fine.
Yeah. Man, like I said, I got to get them all in because eventually it's gone, right? 7-0 versus 5-2, gone.
Yeah.
Playoff success, Cup versus. I thought I was going to get the Cup versus Cup thing gone. That didn't happen last year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now it's
It's
like,
fine.
okay, well, yeah, we're getting there. But at the end of the day, I think the rivalry is growing and it's a lot of
That's it.
fun. But at the end of the day, the thing that's most fun about what we do here is something we call Scarf of the Week. We love showing off our supporter scarves. I want to know, what have you brought today to show off to our listeners?
Yes. So, quick background, funny stuff. I went cleaning out my closet this week because it's been a mess. I've been pushing it off. I'm a procrastinator. It's what I do. So I went through and I was like, oh, I found a nice, beautiful little scarf. And you mentioned something about a cup. So I'm just going to pull out my MLS Cup
Nice.
Champion 2021 MLS Cup scarf that I have here. Love it. From Roughneck Scarves. Love it. My favorite.
Yeah.
And yeah, I always get to pull this out every so often. So we'll pop this on for
Hey,
for the interview today.
I love it. I love it. At the end of the day, we can't argue it. You have it. Whether it was, whether it's got an asterisk next to it, Mickey Mouse, COVID, whatever, you still have it.
No.
Whether that scarf is bigger than the size of your actual banner, you still have it. So I can't wait for you guys to get to your actual stadiums. You can properly show that off. The rivalry aside, like, I think you guys have
Yes.
played to a level that deserves a stadium and deserves proper recognition for yourself. So I'm really excited to see that. For me personally, I'm not taking it out of the plastics. I won't touch it. But
Yes.
I went to the game at City Field this year, and they were giving out this it was like a scarf giveaway. And last
Okay.
year we had post 90 pod on, and I made a bet that I thought New York City were going to miss the playoffs. I didn't like their roster build, and I didn't realize how
Yeah.
bad the rest of the East was going to be. So I thought New York City was going to miss the playoffs. They thought they were going to get in, and we made a bet. I usually have a scarf wall behind me, all my scarves hanging up. And I told them, like, I don't have a New York City scarf. I'll never get one. They said, if you end up, if we make the playoffs, you got to get one. You got to hang it on there
Yeah.
for like one episode. So I'm still trying to find out where to put the wall. So I don't have the wall up yet, but I do have this scarf, and I told them that I will hang it for a single episode, but I will not wear it and I will not touch it. I will have like gloves on. I'm not doing it because it's the worst of the worst. But I do have that. It's there, but this will be maybe the only episode I've ever recorded where I don't have one actually on. So,
It's the quick thing about the rivalry, and if you have me on any podcast, even if you listen to the MLS Aces podcast, good old me, I'll get sidetracked real easy on a quick thing.
love it.
But the Hudson River Derby, New York City versus Red Bulls rivalry, whatever side you stand on, where even if you're an MLS fan not in the New York metro area, I think people forget about this rivalry. And probably, to be fair, before 2024, between like 2019 and 2023, I would say, sure, you know what, it's probably fair that you forgot about it. But in all honesty, this is a special rivalry. I think it personally can be up there, and at times is up there with the El Traficos, the Cascadia Cups of Major League Soccer. So this is always fun banter. I love it, and I think on the field, there really is a dislike for both teams in both locker rooms and both organizations and all of that. So yeah, I love it, and I just want to give the Hudson River Derby the love it deserves, because it is and should be up there, I think, more
Oh
in
yeah.
the casual MLS fans' mind.
For sure, man. So we went to a lot of them because they usually played in the summer. So I was home from
Mm-hmm.
school in between then. So we went to David Villa versus BWP 3-2. They both,
Yeah.
they triple. We were to that game. We went to I was at 7-0 game. We went to the Ben Sweat header game, the Jack Harrison game.
Yep.
Like, we went to all these
Yep.
games, and you could tell, like, it was just hate. Like, they really just did not like each other. And then what happens? Everybody gets sold off. You bring the youth
Yeah.
players up who are like, just another game, that it drops down. But what I'm expecting is that as you continue to go through the youth, playing the youth, and it's like, oh, this is City Red Bull all the way down. Once they get promoted to the first team, it's going to come back up even better. You're kind of seeing it now, but I'm really excited to see it take another big step when you've got like the Julian Halls, the Tanner Rossboroughs, the Aiden Stokes versus the Maxime Carrizos and the Shones. And I mean, it was going to
Yeah,
be Christian McFarland, but McFarland's now gone. Though
yeah,
that is going to be like the next group is going to be really, really fun to watch. So,
I
uh,
fully agree. Yeah, look, it's a fun rivalry, and I think the true building of a true rivalry in Major League Soccer is difficult because of how short, I'm going to say, players' lifespans are with their clubs. So I think sometimes it's more of a rivalry for the fans more than it is for the players on the field at points, which again doesn't help build it. But here we are, we're two different sides of the New York coin right now, talking some soccer.
Yep, and that's it. That's it. So let's get into that soccer, right? So we like to talk about 2025, but a quick look back at 24. I'm labeling it as confusing, right? You saw New York City spend so much money and proceed not to
Yeah,
play those players who they spent so
yeah.
much money on. They didn't take place in Champions Cup or U.S. Open Cup, so it was all about Leagues Cup. And they got through and lost to Crew in the quarterfinals on PKs. They did as they usually do, though. They made it in the playoffs, sixth spot in the East. They were a decent side. They were able to manage and get past FCC before I would say humbled, embarrassed. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
It was a good
no,
game,
I
but
mean it was fine. Yeah, I'm not totally in disagreement with you to be
yeah,
honest, but sure.
yeah. So we, they the Hudson River Derby, they ended up on the wrong side of it. It saw Nick Cushing get released and Pascal Janssen come on
Mhm.
into the staff. They're going to look for better in 25, as well as a solid performance in the Leagues Cup and the U.S. Open Cup that they're in. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on the 2024 year in general, just kind of in summary.
2024 was a mixed bag because I feel like the general theme from like the New York City side of things was just kind of like Nick Cushing out, right? Like that's what you heard from the fans, that's what you heard from media, rumors, all that stuff, and I think it kind of sat with the team and the organization the entire time through 2024, and you saw that on the field. You saw stretches where New York City during portions couldn't win a game, and there was like I think it was at some point it was over 10 games at some point. I'm just blocking it out of my memory, but it was over 10 games where New York City didn't win. And then you're looking at points of the season where New York City, they looked like on talent on paper, not on paper, sorry, on talent on the field, the best team in Major League Soccer. Like they were unbeatable. You couldn't touch them, and they were flying high and everything like that. Right? It was such an up and down. It was such riding the waves of what New York City you were going to get for that period of time, that month, whatever it may be. The Leagues Cup run, I think, was fine. I think honestly, the Tigres win in Leagues Cup was maybe the highlight of the season, which is big. I think it's good to win against Liga MX's competition, and New York City has a little bit of that in their history. They don't have maybe the most opportunities at that so far. So getting a win like that is big, and I think that's something to hold your hat on if you're an NYCFC fan. But heading into the playoffs, I honestly picked New York City over Cincinnati in that first round. I just didn't like where Cincinnati was. They got the job done. Was it ugly? But did you get the job done? That's it. And then the Red Bulls. I honestly thought we were going to move past the Red Bulls. So I give you guys all the credit in the world. It was a little bit of a humbling game. It was a little bit of a shitty feeling afterwards, and something you guys can hold against us. Just like if it was on the other side, we would hold it against you guys. So ultimately, it was a mixed bag. I don't feel good. I don't feel bad about 2024. I just kind of hope 2024 was and is the basis for something moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. And there's so many parts of that I was like, yep, spot on, spot on. Like because it was the same thing for the Red Bull too, right? Red Bull went
Yeah.
down and we went like 15 without a win. But it was
Mm-hmm.
at the same time everybody else wasn't picking up wins. I'm sitting there thinking we keep losing, we keep losing, we keep losing. We didn't move from fourth place for like 2 months, and we didn't
Yeah,
win a
but you
game.
guys have a reason why. You didn't have
Right,
Emil Forsberg.
right.
We
But it
were
was
just playing the people we signed.
Yeah, but it was weird because you're sitting there, you're like, somebody's got to step up, and that's why I say that year was confusing because you're sitting here, you're like, New York City, who else was below us? Orlando jumped us eventually, but
Yeah.
you had
Charlotte.
Charlotte didn't jump us. You guys didn't, like, nobody jumped us,
Yeah.
and we weren't winning. So I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. And now we look forward to 25, and honestly, 25 is feeling kind of weird too because you went from dropping millions upon millions on players, and we're at this section that I call best edition. And usually this is where I'm like, oh no, they're all garbage. But I can't even say that because they haven't signed anybody. Like the best that they've done is
Yeah.
bring back Maxi Morales for another year, which is like mid at best. So how are you
Yeah.
feeling about this very quiet transfer window?
I think just like any other fan, right? Like you want to see the moves, you want to see the money spent. Last offseason, New York City spent roughly $20 million on players. Yes, one of those players is no longer with the club, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. But spending $20 million is a hefty fee. They spent some of the most in CONCACAF last year, and that includes Liga MX, which is an incredible feat. And I think the vision, the thing that the New York City front office, David Lee, and all of them are really trying to, I guess, maybe hang their hat on is that all these young players we invested in 2024, they're going to be key starters, take a step forward in their development, be stars in 2025, right? That is what I think this team is hoping on. I think this offseason was just, okay, what tiny moves, what depth pieces, what can we do and bring in maybe some homegrown players or whatnot. We did sign 2 homegrown players. But yeah, Maxi Morales, the re-signing of him is the key piece to I guess the offseason, or is the highlight of the offseason, I should say.
Yeah,
I
man.
like Maxi, love Maxi, best player in the club's history, if you ask me. At his age, he should not be playing more than 1,000 minutes, and if he does that, I honestly will maybe be impressed at the same exact point. So, look, the offseason isn't great. It's not what you want from, I think, a casual fan point of view. But if you look at 2024's offseason and the age of those players and the resume and the pedigree of some of those guys, I think that's what you kind of have to hope transfers into 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because a lot and there are a lot of teams that are doing this like, oh, you guys have been really quiet. Well, you did all your work in the winter or you did
Yeah.
all your work last summer. Like you don't have a lot of flexibility to do that. However, there are people who have left and I think that there was expectation that the players would be replaced. So when we talk about biggest losses, who would you kind of label in that sense that maybe hasn't been replaced yet that you guys are going to miss?
It has to be James Sands to me. I mean, James Sands to me is a USMNT caliber player. He's a guy that got a pretty bad run of things when he had his loan out to Rangers in Scotland. Not because I think of honestly his play on the field. It was more head coaching changes and a new coach doesn't like the guy that's loaned in and whatever, right? So the first homegrown signing, James Sands in New York City FC history, is back now on loan to the Bundesliga, and he's been playing pretty well to also say that. So I do kind of hope maybe he gets his second or his first fair shot, but his second shot at Europe. And New York City wanted to do everything possible to give him that opportunity. And though it sucks seeing him leave, I am glad that he is getting that opportunity. It does have to be James Sands though, right? Because like James Sands and Keaton Parks were the premier central midfield pairing, I think, in maybe all of Major League Soccer, underrated central midfield pairing. Now you have Andres Perea, who you signed officially, what was it, last offseason, that they initially got from the Union off a season-long loan and stuff like that. Perea is only 23, 24 years old, something like that. He has every ability, I think, to step into a starting D mid spot in Major League Soccer. Will it be James Sands? No, I do not think it will be. But do I think he can play a very strong replacement that is already on that roster? Yes. But I don't know if James Sands is the biggest loss, and I don't know if we've matched anything close to replacing a James Sands caliber talent on this roster.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I went with it too. I don't think he's been replaced, and I think that everybody else that left was like, okay, I'm not really bothered about it. Like Jovan Mijatovic, right? Like you didn't play. Yeah, you were worth a lot of money,
Yeah.
but you didn't play. So I'm not really hurt by it. But James Sands, I think you mentioned the level he played at is USMNT caliber. Depending on position, you can have that argument. I would
Yeah.
agree. I don't know if I can see him as a center back there, but he played in
No,
multiple
he's a
positions
six.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
he played in multiple positions
Mhm.
for you and did it well.
Yeah.
So not only are you not replacing him as a six, but you're not replacing a backup center back either, or you're not replacing the depth that you're going to lose in the center mid spot, right? Andreas Pereira was solid, right? I liked him at Orlando. I think he's going to do well in New York City, but who's up after that, right? And then what's the
Yeah.
next step from there? And that's kind of my worry with him is when you don't invest. The problem isn't like, oh yeah, we signed all these players before, but you signed a lot of wingers and attackers. Now you're looking at this back line, and we're going to talk about it here in a little bit that's kind of one of the big questions that stand out to me. So somebody's going to have to step up. Somebody's going to have to do something that maybe people aren't expecting them to do. Who do you think is that player to watch, that or the breakout player this year for New York City?
That's a great question, and one that I've been thinking about for my own podcast, my own show, just my own thoughts of being a New York City fan of who is it going to be? Because I would say last year, right, that was Alonso Martinez. He was the guy who came out. He scored, 15 plus goals on a non-DP deal, and that's the type of return you want to see. The fun thing about, I guess, the answer to this question too is, again, what I said before, 2024, a lot of these young talents that we're banking on for the future. I can pick any one of them, I guess. Julian Fernandez, Augustino Heda, right? I think both of those guys probably have a shout for that. But for me, I'm going to go a little Tavon Gray. I don't think he gets the love he deserves. I think
Okay.
Tavon Gray is an unbelievable defender. I think he's growing into his own as he's getting more and more games played on the offensive, kind of getting up the field a little bit. That's never going to be his natural game, but he's getting a little bit better at that. And I think that's really what kind of saved us at points is the wingbacks just getting forward. New York City likes their wingbacks pushing up, and Tavon Gray, more of a natural defender, but I think he's even come out and been very confident this preseason. They just had a big win in the preseason against San Diego. It's preseason. I know I'm not banking on anything too much there, but he came out, and apparently Chucky Lozano didn't have a great day. Guess who's on defending that side and things? And Tavon Gray said, yeah, I guess that's just the D that, like, he said, I guess that's just my D. A little, weird wording there, but if you're stopping the ability of a Chucky Lozano in this league, you're stopping most of the talented wingers that this league has. So I think defensively, our defense is going to be tested a bunch, and if Tavon Gray can slow down some of the best attackers and the best outside attackers that this league has, it's going to be a big piece of it. But you can pick like 4 guys off this roster to probably be the answer to your question.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one. It crossed my mind. My brother does not. He's a City supporter because I support
Yeah.
Red Bull, because you know how little brothers are. But he's not a big Tavon Gray guy at all. He's like when you had to start playing him more frequently, we would talk about it. He's like, yep, here we go again. Yep, here we go again. Yep, here we
New
go
York
again.
City
So
fans either love or hate Tavon Gray. I'm a lover of the dude. I don't think he was a natural center back as what he came up as. If you told me he had to play like a right center back in a back three, okay, cool. Like, I'm not against that whatsoever, but I think he's a natural right back. And I think there's a reason why, he got a call up for the Jamaican national team, and he's playing for them. And I don't know. I'm a Tavon Gray lover. So if you're a New York City fan listening to this, watching this, whatever, then and you're hating me right now, I guess I'm here for it.
love it. Mine is a little bit of a guy who was close to being this player last year, and that's Malachi Jones, right? This guy who I was really, really excited to watch. I watched him play, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like, he's really good, which I don't like, because that means he's going to be like good against us. And I remember he played against Red Bull, and he was solid. Like, he torched us up the wing, and then he got that injury. And I honestly, I believe that injury changed the course of the season for New York City, where they had such a trustworthy guy in that position.
Yeah.
And then it just never felt like they replaced him after he got hurt, even with all of these multi-million dollar, South American guys or whatever. So I'm hoping he comes back at the level that he left at, and just picks up right where he left off, because from a completely neutral, non-biased standpoint, he is a very good player, and I want him to do very well here.
Look, I love any super draft steal. I'm a super
Yes.
draft, a nerd.
Out of
If you,
Lipscomb, yeah, that's
yeah,
that's the definition of a
exactly.
steal.
Right? Like a Sierra Leone attacker out of Lipscomb. Like it's I love stuff like that. So I think a reason why the Augustino Hayes, the Julian Fernandez didn't play for a bunch of 2024 was because Nick Cushing saw the development in the path of Malachi Jones. He earned a starting role on this team. He was playing at a higher level than any other winger on the team, and that was Hans Wolf and every name that I've mentioned so far in the attack. And if he comes back to a high level, I think New York City maybe surprise a few people, because he's probably a guy that the casual MLS fan also didn't really pay too much attention to. So I think if he comes back, and then if you see the development of any other one of these wingers, I have a little bit more hope than what than maybe what I'm currently possessing right now for my team.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. So we hinted at this one before about some questions that are hanging over the team, but I
Mhm.
kind of want to know out of your perspective as a supporter of the team, what is that one big question you want them to answer before getting into 2025?
Great question. I'm gonna say, I mean, maybe this is a little bit of a cop out answer, but if any new manager, what is this team gonna look like under a new manager? Who's
Yeah, no,
gonna
that's
earn their
totally fair.
who's earned their spots and who hasn't? Who has
Yeah.
caught the eye of Pascal Janssen? Right? Like there's towards the end of last year, Burke Risa, who was a big time addition to our defense, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, whatever. He wasn't a starting center back on this team anymore. Justin Hack was starting at center back next to Thiago Martins. You have again, I am repeating the same names just because it's true, and they were multi-million dollar signings. Augustino Ojeda and Julian Fernandez. They didn't start under Nick Cushing and Malachi Jones and Johannes Wolford. Well, does Pascal Janssen maybe see something different in Ojeda and Fernandez to Jones and Wolf? There's a lot to it that I just think New York City has some sneaky depth, and it's going to be interesting to see who Pascal Janssen favors for starting roles, maybe where it was different to a Cushing, because they play very similar systems, similar styles. It's just, I think the personnel question is where my head's at.
No, I like that, and that's actually that feeds more into my prediction than it does my question. But I completely agree because when a new coach comes in, you have no idea, right? And I
Yeah,
always use Red Bull as the example because duh, right? But
yeah,
you went from a guy like going from coach to Sandra Suarez,
yeah,
and all we used to do is get it high, get it long, win it back, get it high, get it long, win it back. Sandra
yeah,
Suarez is
yeah,
like, we expect him to do the same thing. He's a Red Bull implant. Like Red Bull only plays
yeah.
one way. And then we start playing out of the back with possession. We're like, oh my God, we can play
Who's
soccer.
this?
Like who knew that after the last 5 years of using academy kids just to go chase balls down to the corner all day, that we could actually pass the ball? That's
We
insane.
don't just have to press and win 50-50 balls and
Yeah,
potentially
isn't
score
it?
off
So
one of
so
them.
you never know what's going to come out of this, and it's very very interesting, and it makes predictions super hard because you got a third of the league now that has a new coach. So what are they
Yeah,
going to look like? How are they going to change? You have no idea. So it's going to be very
yeah,
very fun. For me, the question is about Alonso Martinez and can he repeat what he did, right? In 2024,
fair.
we went into this like what's going on with the striker battle, right? And that's one of the reasons why I didn't have them in the playoffs. Was like I don't trust Tyus Magna was on the way out. I don't trust Bakrar. And who's next on the striker list? Like some 17-year-old. I was like, they've
Yeah,
got no striker. They can't play.
yeah,
No, that's not going to happen, right? You're going to play Maxi Morales as an offset nine. Like, what are we going to do? I have no idea. So then he comes in and he drops. I think he was the single best, if not behind Messi, in terms of gold per 90. And it's like,
yeah.
okay,
He was.
that's insane, right? That's a great return. Is it sustainable? Can you do it again? With the new coach, are you going to play in the same style that is going to allow you to do this sort of thing? I have no idea, but that's something I'm watching because if he doesn't, I don't like Bakrar as your number two, unless he's playing Red Bull, of course, because we let every bad striker score and revive their career. But it just doesn't feel like there is that.
Mhm.
We talked about it. The depth doesn't feel like it's there for him to make mistakes, right? Or for Janssen to get this wrong early. So
Yeah.
interested for
I don't
sure.
disagree with that. Alonso Martinez is a guy who, when he came in during the summer transfer window and like didn't really play much when he initially came in. Then like when he started getting a few minutes, like he was being productive with those minutes. He was scoring with those minutes. And it's like, okay, why isn't this guy playing more? Well, we have a hole at the nine. So, or we have no one really taking a hold of the nine is probably the more accurate way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. And last year he earned his spot. I don't think 2024 was a flash in the pan for Alonso Martinez. I think his game and how New York City plays can make that replicable once again. Do I think he's maybe finishing top goals per 90 along with Lionel Messi? Again, no, I don't think that. I think that's a little silly to assume. But do I think he's a guy who could get you 12, 13, 14 goals? Yeah, I think 10 plus is probably a safe number for Alonso Martinez.
That's interesting. So I don't know about that. I think that last year was bright because it just felt, like I said, and again, confusing in 2024, that it just
Yeah,
felt weird because
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it was confusing because you have all these, signings, and then Alonso Martinez, who's an out and out winger, just pops up at the nine and scores, 15, 17, whatever goals, right? So now it's like, okay, That's just confusing because that wasn't supposed to happen. So making this next step. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I just think I think the difference or the reason why it was successful is because even as a winger, you saw the natural traits in Alonso Martinez of a pure goal scorer. He was a guy who wanted the ball at his foot to shoot. Like he wanted to shoot out from the wing. And I think the transition to him up top as a nine, yeah, anytime I think anyone shifts positions, it's a little weird, a little awkward, chunky. There's moments that just don't always flow well, but I don't know. I think his skill set made that transition so quick where people are like, oh, like, was he always a nine? Like, I don't remember him, like, whatever. And now he was playing again for the Costa Rican national team, you know, like he's revitalized his career with this positional change. And I think the move to New York City as well. So I understand why people have questions in the back of my brain, in the back of my mind. Do I have questions if he's going to be another double-digit goal scorer? Yes, but I think the logical part of my brain is like, okay, like there's too many things that add up to say that Alonso Martinez won't be successful once again in 2025.
I like it. I like the faith. You have to, because if you go into it with no faith, what's the point, right? Then you might as well just be San Jose. So let's tie it all together then. Let's go ahead. I should have said Chicago, really. San Jose is up and down. Chicago's just always down. So let's go ahead and tie it all together. Let's predict the finish. I'm sorry. That's right. You have your co-host as a Chicago fan. I'm going to get hate for that.
I was going to say, you know,
Jason's going to hate me.
I maybe shit on Jason way too much for Chicago Fire things, but he's excited for 2025. So I can't really, like, I'm getting a very excited version of Jason on my podcast right now when we talk Fire. So I'm really trying to just bolster.
Yeah, take
that
it all in. Yeah, I totally get it.
Jonathan Bamba, he's the future. Let's go.
Yes,
You know?
I love it. I love it. Oh man. Well, let's go ahead and finish this with a nice prediction. Where do you think New York City is going to finish this year?
It's tough. We are in the middle of doing our previews and our predictions, and I have them. I'm not going to give you an exact number, but I have them in the range of, if everything goes, I think, absolutely as perfect as you can think, and Santi Rodriguez doesn't go to Botafogo, I think you have New York City can potentially be as high as fourth. I think if things fall out the bottom, you're looking at a team missing the playoffs 100%. This is not, especially with where the rest of the East is. The East has gotten, a lot of teams have gotten much better. You look at the Chicagos, the Atlantas. You look at what Cincinnati and Inter Miami are. Even with Columbus and all their losses that they've had talent-wise, I still have faith in Wilfred Nancy because we shouldn't not have faith from what we've seen in the last few years under a Wilfred Nancy coach team. So I just don't know if this New York City team has done enough to, if everything goes worst case scenario, or if a few things go worst case scenario, to still be in the playoff picture with how good everyone else has gotten. So I think best you're looking at fourth. I think worst you're looking at maybe one of the first two teams out of the playoffs, but still out of the playoffs.
I'm right there with you, and like I said, this is weird for me because like I wasn't thrilled with the roster last year. I'm even less thrilled with it this year. And you've got the idea that these foreign coaches who come in for preseason and then just right into it, they struggle early, right? That's something that happens all the time. But there are individuals here, and you mentioned Santi if he stays. Matt Freese keeps you in every game that you possibly can imagine, including every game he plays against Red Bull, which is annoying.
Should have won goalkeeper of the year.
100%.
That's my only caveat. I know Charlotte fans will hate me for that, but should have won goalkeeper of the year.
I think he should have at least been in the nomination. He wasn't even in the nomination, which is ridiculous. I've never had to defend a New York City player so much than I have in Matt Freese, and it doesn't even make me feel bad because like that's how bad he was robbed.
It's also not great when out of an entire roster and an entire season you're defending the goalkeeper. Not to say that the goalkeepers don't deserve love, but when your goalkeeper is your shining star, that's just isn't a great maybe reflection of what the season was.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. But you know, there's a bunch of individuals there who can like carry you through closer games. You know, I think the center mid needs to be improved, and I think they will do that at some point. Center backs are good, but they're just thin. There's like, you know, they've got guys like Justin Hack who are going to do the James Sam thing. They're like, oh, you're going to be a 6 unless we need you at the center back, and now you're going to go back there, and you know he's going to have to figure it out. And I said I think they're solid, but you're one injury or one international call up away from being tough there. You know, and there are big names in the attack, but how is like you mentioned, how is Jansen going to use them, and how's it going to fit in? I think it's a playoff team, but I think it's low. I'm thinking like 6 to 9. But what we have said on every Eastern Conference preview so far is this is the last year the East was a bloodbath where you had 8 teams who could have finished in the top three, and you were like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and we're gonna have bad
Yeah.
teams, but good teams are gonna miss out on home playoff. Now it's like
Yeah.
everybody has been diluted or has raised their game to the point where almost everybody feels equal-ish. Like you've got your teams like Miami, and you get your teams like maybe Atlanta, depending on how quickly they can get together. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe those guys are going to be 1-2, but the teams like Cincy, the teams like Columbus, the teams like Orlando even have all kind of just felt mid. So this is going to be an Eastern Conference where everybody I think is going to be in it until the last day. You're
Mm.
maybe, like I said, maybe you have one team who's like out 3 games left to play, but I think everybody's going to be in it to the very last day. And those teams that miss out in the 10, 11, 12 spot are probably
Mm.
going to miss out on goal differential or like a single point. Like it's going to be that close. That's the feeling I'm getting.
Interesting. I view it sort of similar, sort of different. This is how I view the Eastern Conference. I think there's a clear top four. If you, we can dive, if we can dive down it if you want, but I think there's a clear top four. I think there's a clear bottom four, and then I think there's kind of just a mess in the middle of, like you said, who's going to finish where based off goal differential, based off whatever it may be, but like wins alone probably, right? So I think there's a clear top, a clear bottom, and I think the East just has a lot of centrally packed talent that I think New York City's in. I think that they're in that central group where, again, if things go great, they're maybe closer to 4 or 5. If things go mid, okay, you're closer to 6, 7, 8. If not, you're looking at a playing game or out because everyone else is just as good, developing better, whatever they're doing, right? But yeah, the Eastern Conference is going to be interesting. It was a fun conversation last year, where the West I think was less fun to talk about on a constant week to week basis.
Yep.
I think it might be the same thing in 2025.
Yeah, that is a perfect way to put it. Like I felt bad going into the Western Conference previews we've done because it's like I watched you guys for 30 minutes last year. I just could not get
Yeah,
myself to be like, yeah, I can't wait for the West. This year, different story. But
yeah,
Tom,
I agree.
thanks so much for being here, man. Like this was such a good time, and we've been trying to do this for a while. I'm really glad we got it done because we've been, like I said, this is something we've been trying to do, and it was great. So take a minute, tell people where to find you and what you're doing.
Yeah, no. So I am Tom, host of the MLS Aces podcast. You can find us on any podcasting platform, YouTube, all that fun stuff. I do the show with my co-host Jason Vivang, and Jason's a big Chicago Fire fan that we hinted at earlier. I'm a New York City fan, obviously. And then we recently, for 2025, have gone down the path of we're trying to drop 2 episodes a week. We got the 1 episode a week, doing that forever. Now we're trying to do 2. So I'm trying to do an interview drop every single Monday, and then the classic Jason and I talking what's going on in the world of MLS and US soccer every Thursday. So you can find us all MLS Aces on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram. I'm really bad at, so probably not that, but pretty much every other social media platform there. And then Andrew, yeah, no, it's honestly been a blast. I'm glad that we finally were able to do this, and I think we should have you back on for one of our 2 episodes a week on a Monday interview for sure.
Yeah, dude, that'd be super super fun. We went to 2 episodes 2 years ago, and we don't get there all the time anymore because it does get a little tough. But it's so much fun to do because it varies things up. It's not the same. Just we're chatting, we're chatting, we're chatting. Like yeah,
Yeah.
you switch it up a little bit, makes you feel like it's there's a little bit of variation there. So thank you again so much for being here. Everybody should go check them out. Their MLS coverage is top notch, just like everybody else that we've been talking to. But like I said, this is a not so deep dive for a reason. Like Tom's got the deep dive on all the New York City stuff. So get over there and go deep dive with him. So thank you guys for listening. Tom, thanks again for being here. We'll see everybody on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. See ya.